You're listening to the Insight to Action podcast. My name is Dawna Jones. I'm your host, and in this program, we're talking about platform design, which is a means to design your business and what you're trying to do, what you're trying to put out in the world, in a means that really is effective in this day and age, in this world. It's faster, it's cheaper, and it achieves things that industrial models can't do. While setting up this virtual reality startup, I was talking to a colleague of mine, a colleague of ours, my guest today, and he was very thoughtful about laying out some of the things that I need to look at in doing this, and so it just made sense to have a conversation with Simone Cicero from Rome, Italy, because Simone has developed a platform design toolkit. So I think we better start with what is a platform and why is it important, and why does someone like an entrepreneur or someone wanting to be an entrepreneur or thinking about things differently in this new world of startups need to know?
Yeah. The first question, what is a platform, is not that easy to answer, but I will try. So basically, people are using the word platform to describe a lot of different things. Most of them try to describe a technology that can connect brands and users, or in general users among them, to achieve some kind of workflow or in general some kind of actions, let's say. More in general, I would say that it's a way to organize markets. It's a way to shape markets, as many say. It's a way, let's say, to motivate parties in an ecosystem to join particular business model, let's say. So there are lots of different definitions. Normally, I rely on the definitions from one interesting definition from Sanjit Chaudhary that defines platforms as business models and third parties can plug into. So if you're a brand and you create this business model to which other parties can connect, can participate with. And another cool definition is that from John Hagel that refers to platforms more like essentially as governance structures, so let's say shared media for interaction, where someone, most likely the platform owner, dictates the rule for the collaboration and cooperation and solve disputes and ensure that it's clear to everybody what is the role that the entities can play in the game, let's say. And another interesting way, always from John Hagel, to address and to define platforms is as basically what he calls galvanizing messages. So you come to an existing possibility, an opportunity in the market. You created this shared vision and message to motivate everybody to participate. And then if you are lucky and good in making the ecosystem grow, then you have changed things forever, let's say, on a particular market or a market sector, let's say, like, for example, Airbnb did for the travel industry. Why it's important? It's of course it's important because I would say it's possible because technology made platforms possible. So now you can reach many entities. The coordination cost is very low. The transaction cost among parties is very low thanks to pervasive technologies. So actually now it's possible to create platforms. So it would be stupid to stick to industrial model that costs a lot of money to build and normally are not very effective, let's say. The other question is it's needed. And let me explain briefly why. Because now basically we live in a world where everybody wants something different, something personal. So we live in an age of mass personalization, let's say. So every brand that's in the market and needs to create something, even if it's a small company, really needs to address very different, let's say, economies of scope, basically, of demand. So a lot of different demands, people are wanting different products and services adapted to their personal needs. And so if you try to respond to this diversity of needs with an industrial approach, so with a bureaucracy, basically, you end up having a cost of responding to a customer, which is so high that it would make it unworthy for you. to still respond to the long tails of the market and to this mass personalization and make money, what you need to do is just enable the participant to self-organize. You don't provide any service or product. Just connect parties in the periphery of the system and let them self-organize and just take a very small part of the pie, say. So that's how platforms work, and that's why they are needed, because it's just the time of the platform moment, let's say, in the digital economy.
So what it seems you're talking about here is that in traditional industrial models, they built things on a very linear pathway. And now we have to, by definition, because of the nature of complexity and the nature of how we're communicating with one another and everything else, is we move to more of an ecosystem-based approach. So it sounds like the platform then fills that niche. It gives that spot where you plug in, and you've now got the basis for building an ecosystem, which is something that a linear approach just can't simply pull off.
If you try to respond linearly to nonlinear complex dynamics happening in the demand side of your company, so trying to respond to customers, with a linear approach, what you have is an explosion of cost. So that's why you really need to think about your organization differently, no more like something that is encompassed by the traditional boundaries, like thinking to your organization as a set of employees managing resources that you own directly. But you need to think to your organization more as a story, let's say, more as a way to convince entities which are not belonging to your organization at all formally, let's say, but to behave and represent your brand and to behave in line with your objectives, which in this case should definitely be the objectives shared with the ecosystem. So that's why we move from, let's say, companies that are able to define their strategies and objectives internally into a context where organizations are more soft organisms, let's say, more permeable organisms, and their mission needs to be really, their strategy needs to be really shared among a lot of parties that need to collaborate with them, achieving a broader objective. So not a company objective, but a systemic objective, a systems, let's say, ecosystem objective.
What would be an example of that? I mean, certainly what came to mind was Steve Denning's, Forbes contributor Steve Denning's mantra, delight the customer. Is that the kind of level that you're referring to?
Well, now I think we are more into, the goal is more the story you craft. And most of these stories now are the ones that are really changing. Think about, I don't know, for example, really, Airbnb is a very easy example, no? But it's a promise to rethink how travel works and, getting past the traditional way of traveling. So really opening a new way of traveling based on relationships. So the promise is not really on delighting customers, but it's really about answering to their motivations. So that's essentially the difference between the product narrative, the customer narrative, and the ecosystem narrative. So the narrative we are used is a narrative of solving a customer's problem with a solution. And that worked very well in the industrial age. But now we are facing a new narrative, which is empowering ecosystem potentials. So it's no more about a solution that delights a customer, but it's about creating a new, let's say, context that can be shared and used by many players in an ecosystem to achieve their objectives, to, let's say, to fulfill their needs and to empower their motivations and their potential.
And co-create by the sound of it as well.
Yeah, definitely, because in the end, if you have a company or now that needs to, let's say, share the objective with a larger ecosystem, the most challenging part of evolving a strategy of a company now is really in this tension between what the company empowers the party to do, so its ecosystem to do, and what needs to be done by the company itself. So it's always this complementary set of services, and normally, for example, the example of Amazon created this service to create platforms, let's say cloud-based infrastructures. And then at some point, the users of Amazon Web Services started to work a lot on big data. And at some point in time, Amazon created a flagship offering, let's say, based on Hadoop and big data, in a way eating part of the ecosystem pie. But then the ecosystem now it's evolving into higher level of services. Platforms are very famous to be places where there is collaboration and competition in the same moment, and this doesn't just happen between the players in the ecosystem, but also between the players in the ecosystem and the brand itself. So that's more or less the point.
Okay, no, excellent. As you're describing this, I'm realizing that one of the episodes I did with Carl Mattingly on crowd forecasting is very much a platform for that, because everybody comes there, they put in their forecasts, their predictions, they use it for hedge fund modeling and largely in the financial services, but that's exactly what it is. So it's a great image that you've presented here. Those of us that have been working with the new ways of getting business done, have been working with business design canvas and so forth, or lean canvas, and name multiple canvases. You have got the platform design canvas. How does that help an entrepreneur think through the platform and think this whole thing through?
The platform design canvas belongs to the family of business design canvases that was more or less initiated by Alex Osterwalder with the business model canvas, but also has a lot of roots into the traditional service design world, which has always been based on canvases for co-creation. So the idea is canvases are tools mostly because you need to co-create with others, So you need a visual representation, you need an abstraction of what you're doing. So the platform design toolkit starts from reducing the complexity of the problem. So designing a platform is not an easy task. It's a very complex task, as you said. Complex systems are very hard to predict. So what we can do with complex systems is throwing experiments, let's say, at them. So we try to do something and then we see how it works and then we adjust and so on and so on. Platform Design Toolkit so far it's a set of 5 canvases that let you do what I call the strategic design of the platform. So you can craft the strategy, the motivation message. Let's say you can generate an image for how this platform works. So if you're in the future of a market sector, let's say mobility, you can generate a vision how the collaborative mobility can work. What's your idea of this market? So then you need to convince the market to work like this. And this goes through validating your assumptions and then prototyping. So Platform Design Toolkit, so far, the 5 tools that are available today help you to define this story. And to define this story, you go from mapping the players, the roles that can be played by the ecosystem players in your vision. Then you analyze their motivations. Then you analyze what they can exchange between each other. And you end up doing essentially 2 things. One is the engine of transactions. So what are the core transactions, the core exchanges, the core exchanges of value that will happen in your platform ecosystem, let's say. And on the other hand, you create what we call the learning engine. So you think of how your platform can create support services for the entities in your ecosystem to evolve, to learn new things, to generate new opportunities, let's say. So that's what you do. You create, with the tools available today, you are able to create these 2 essential aspects of platform, the transaction engine and the learning engine. So you create your vision. Now we are developing a new part of the toolkit that will be available most likely over the summer, and it's still something that we are going to release in Creative Commons. And this part of the toolkit will help you to move from the idea into actionable hypotheses that you can validate and prototype. So it's about moving from the vision to the prototype, to the validation, and then to do what many call the growth hacking part. So to move from the creation of the new platform into growing the usage of the platform, because this is an essential aspect of platforms. The platforms that work are the ones that can generate these network effects. Otherwise, it's very it's very hard. In general, even if what we do is not applicable just to global platforms, even if it's a small platform that wants to address or to work into a niche market, so that's the point of growth hacking.
I know you've been doing workshops around Europe on this and really helping people step into it and discover how its power as a tool. Any examples of eurekas or insights that people have gained from the experimenting with the design toolkit?
Well, yes. We have been working with a lot of different customers and contexts. For example, a very interesting work we have been doing, it's in the health sector. Most of the health sectors worldwide now are under a lot of pressure in terms of cost cutting and so on. And so we are trying to help these health providers to achieve more by investing less, by spending less, and doing this by leveraging on the potential of the ecosystem around the patient. So, for example, doctors which are not inside the hospital or in general to the institutional context, or semi-professional or training professionals, friends, support families, and so on. So this is an example of how you can motivate the ecosystem around the patient to help for example, the patient to get care more at home instead of going to the hospital, or more in his on her local community, let's say. So that's, for example, something that we have been doing. Another very good example, I think, we have been working on with some customers on companies which are focused on hardware products. So the question there is, how can I expand my value proposition beyond the hardware? And then customers need to ask, what is the value chain that is happening on top of the hardware products? So, for example, if you sell a fridge, and then you need to understand what's happening with this fridge, and then you understand that the value chain of food now goes much higher and goes into feeling better, eating well. For example, you understand and you discover that instead of selling just a fridge, you can sell a platform that connects, or you can create a platform that connects people that are able to cook and prepare healthy food and deliver that at workplaces, for example. And then you realize suddenly that your fridge maybe can be just part of an infrastructure that allows this platform to exist, basically, instead of having to sell one fridge to each customer or office you consider. But that's just an example. There are lots of different examples. We have been working on mobility issues. So the insight in general, I would say, is to really innovate the business of your company, you can do essentially two things. First of all, you can climb the value chain, as I just said. So you need to look at how the users, your end users, are using your services. What is the value they are looking for, and then try to let's say climb this. And the other option is to really go for different business cores. So being less adjacent, let's say, to your existing business core, and explore more widely. In both cases, platforms allow companies to do this exploration with less investments, so with less capex, basically, faster, because these models grow faster and can help companies to validate their assumption faster than with the traditional industrial strategies, because of course, to build something, you need more money, you need more time, and so on. While if you leverage on what are the resources and potential existing in the ecosystem, you just need to wire the potential that is in the ecosystem and see that potential start flowing instead of building the tools, the resources, and hiring the people and so on. So it's a wide set of context where you can apply these techniques and this way of thinking, especially because, as I said, it's based on these two engines. First of all, you want to generate relationships and transactions, because now, in modern age, we know that relationships are essential to, for example, to generate learning, to generate experiences, and so on. And then you want to support these entities grow their capabilities, generate new opportunities because everybody's under pressure. The digital disruption is creating this huge pressure on companies, small one, big one, individuals, and so on. So that's why platforms are thriving today, because creating this context offer people possibilities to reinvent themselves, to transcend their identities, to learn new capabilities, generate new opportunities, and so on. So that's the key message behind the work we are doing.
One of the things that I'm intrigued by here is it's the kind of thing that evolves. So you can take it, you can start in one place with it, but you can layer it on as you grow. So there's an aspect of this I want to just probe a bit with you, and that is scaling new business models in the healthcare sector, like self-organized. I'm thinking of Bertsorg here, where they've got a self-managed team, and I had that on the other podcast that I ran. That conversation with their CEO. But when they get to a place of scale, then all of a sudden there's a tipping point where you have to shift to something else. And it seems to me that's where a platform would fit in.
These business models, platform business models, scale much faster because, as I said, you don't need to build. Basically, you just enable, no? So you just create share the space, the rules, let's say. And the way you can create these rules for interaction now, it's even evolving more widely, because if you think that now platforms mostly dominate markets, especially the new markets that they create, so think of Uber, Airbnb, but of course the first generation is the Apple, Facebook, Apple developer ecosystem, the Facebook social system, Google advertising system, and so on. All these networks now really dominating markets. But then what's happening now is that we have even a new generation of what let's say, platforms. And this new generation is made by what people call fat protocols, let's say. So if you think of Bitcoin and all these new breed of platform-based companies, like the ones based on the Ethereum blockchain. So these companies can scale even faster than traditional platforms because they are very, very thin, let's say, in what they, I don't know how to explain, but actually a protocol, it's a way to share a set of rules. And the blockchain protocol that enabled the Bitcoin ecosystem in the last 6 years grew from nothing to an entirely new financial system that is disrupting everything in finance. And that was based only on a piece of paper, basically, a scientific paper and a small piece of code that was created by this, this guy that nobody knows if it exists or not, Satoshi Nakamoto. But the thing is, it was just a protocol, and the protocol grew so fast. And that's, that's the next generation, the disruptors of the disruptors. So protocols are most likely going to disrupt platforms. It's a way to think, I would say, something post-industrial. It's going in this direction. It's really about getting to the basic rules of agreement between parties and see what happens. And that's what platforms are doing to some extent, and what protocols like the cryptocurrencies and blockchains and things like that are doing even wider, let's say even more radically than platforms.
Yeah, it's interesting. On this program, on this podcast, I have an interview with Michael Manelli, who's probably one of the top global experts in blockchain. And he described, blockchain itself has been around for a long time, but using it as a platform for cryptocurrency, as you described, is relatively new. So it's really interesting to see how a platform can exist, but all of a sudden new applications come up that change and evolve, force the platform to evolve to a different place with it. So yeah, extremely interesting conversation. Let's talk a bit about practical stuff for people listening to this. How can they jump in, learn more? Where would they go for more understanding of how to apply all of what you've talked about to their companies, to making the adjustments from the old way to a new way, or just from, in terms of starting out and as in the place I'm at with this new work, is to look at things, to help think things through?
Definitely. Well, that's very easy for in this case, because we have a website which is www.platformdesigntoolkit.com. And on this website, people can first find the whole set of tools and a guideline. All of this stuff is released in Creative Commons, so it's open source. is commercially friendly, so you can even download and run a workshop with that. Nobody, like a little bit like with business model canvas. That's our general and original inspiration. That's why. So everything is open source again, and you can download the toolkit and the user guide and test it. Then if you want to learn a little bit more, even before testing it, what you can do is reading our white paper, which is still available on the website if you click to the white paper label. That white paper is something we wrote together with Swift, which is one of the most important financial institutions in the world. It's, in its way, it's a platform itself. We created this white paper to try to give a framework to the people approaching platform thinking, to understand basically why it's important, what's happening in the world, how you can change your organization to be more able to achieve that kind of strategy. Then beyond the white paper, we also provide essentially 3 ways to cooperate with us and learn with us. One is our public masterclass, which is touring, let's say, the world. So far, we did only Europe, but we have plans to explore other places. And you can see on the website if there is a masterclass upcoming, or you can just get in touch. And of course, we provide on-demand services for companies. I would say mainly what we call design workshops or design sprints, and training events like private master classes and things like that. And this worked very well. Normally, there's a lot of value in a master class, for example, in a private master class where you can have a lot of your teams learning this new approach and sharing insights in a single day, something that is very, very fulfilling for companies. And finally, the very last bit is to engage in shared and in collaborative research with us. So this is definitely not context of research which is done, is there. No, there's a lot of work to do. Essentially now we are researching connecting platform thinking with 3 contexts. One is the what we call the platform organization, which is how to use platform thinking inside companies, let's say, to really transform them in what I said before, to transcend the traditional boundaries of thinking your company like a set of employees using a set of resources you directly own. So it's about researching on how to use these tools and ways of thinking inside companies, for example, in HR or open innovation and so on. Second aspect we are researching is the connection with the existing world of design thinking. As I said, we are in a moment in which we are switching from customer-driven, let's say customer-centric thinking, like solving some customer problem, into ecosystem-centric thinking, which is really about empowering the potential in ecosystems. And so there's a lot of work to do. For example, let's say we are used to customer journeys. What about an ecosystem journey? So what about, for example, the production part, the supply side of your ecosystem? So that's another research we are doing. And lastly, and probably the most important now, that will be, as I said, published during the first things will be published during summer, is about connecting platform thinking with lean techniques of prototyping. So customer development, for example, that needs to be evolved into ecosystem development, as we say. And in general, we are working on the concept of what it is a minimum viable platform, let's say. So there's a lot of work to do, and another way to collaborate and learn more is to research with us. So just to recap, download your tools and do it yourself with the guideline. Just join our masterclass, get in touch for on-demand workshops and masterclasses, or just get in touch to research together and explore the world of platform thinking with us.
Wow, fantastic. Thanks, Simone. I really appreciate you being on the program. I know that I'll be looking more closely at this because part of my project involves rolling out at the platform level, and what we're doing is looking at how to measure the systemic effects of something like this.
Yeah, definitely.
From a research point of view. So the Swedish Institute for Computer Science is on board for that. So I'm looking forward to doing that. So we'll have to talk about that as that evolves. So. Definitely.
I mean, I agree. We are in an age of systems. The platform thinking is the way we are suggesting, to motivate these systems and coordinate these systems towards shared objectives. So that's totally understood, and I totally understand what you say.
All right, thanks so much, Simona. That was fantastic.
Great. I mean, I'm a big fan of this podcast, so I'm very proud of being featured, and I will share it with all my friends, and hopefully we did some good service to the community in explaining what a platform is and why it's important. So again, thanks very much, Dawna. It was a pleasure to share some time with you.
It's a real honor to be in the company of innovators like Simona, and obviously everyone on the podcast falls into that category. So I'm most grateful for that kind of ecosystem that supports the work that I and my colleagues are doing to really bring better ways of getting things done. My name is Dawna Jones, wrote Decision Made for Dummies, have a chapter coming up in The Intelligence of the Cosmos and the New Purpose of Business, and specifically it addresses epigenetics and emotion in the workplace and how networks operate, which will provide some sort of scientific lens, if you will, to what we're talking about here. I've also do a lot of work in the area of helping companies evolve, specifically with respect to their decision making, with their leadership, and intuitive, developing their intuitive intelligence, which is pretty much required for foresight and any kind of capacity to work with complexity. So thank you very much. You can head over to FromInsightToAction.com for more information, or contact me through Twitter. Twitter is TPDAWNA_Jones, or, of course, on LinkedIn. I do have music for you today, and this music comes from, actually, this is quite a story behind this one. I am currently staying at my daughter's place, and underneath my daughter's place is a basement suite, and in that basement suite is a metal musician. And we're standing outside one day talking about his music, and he does quite a range of genres, and so he's offered a track that has got nothing to do with metal. It's more along the lines of Lord of the Rings. And so here's a track from Jaron, and that, by the way, is the only name I have for him, so it's Jaron, and of course his references are in the show notes so that you can see what else he's up to, but mostly he's singing at this point. Anyway, here you go. Enjoy.